Hello, and welcome to JagaVision, episode 15. It's pretty awesome that we managed to keep going, and I'm really happy with what we've been able to produce. We've had some awesome guests. Last week we had Jen from the Tea Mistress, we've had Adam Krieg, we've had Uchida Eatery on, we've had Kafka's, we've had Transcend, we've had Monogram, we've had Ratio, Canoe, so many beautiful spaces and owners and people in the industry, not in the industry. We've have quite the collection of shows that I really encourage you to check out. We're at episode 15, but 1 through 14 are fantastic too. So I hope that you check them out. They're on our YouTube channel that you're watching right now, so youtube.com/JagaSilk. And then we're hoping to see you every week if you can. So subscribe to the channel. You can also go onto our webpage and check out the teas that we bring in, that we are drinking on the show. You can buy the selections before and after the show happens, so you can be drinking them with us. We also do these public Zoom cuppings that I encourage you to check out and be a part of. So really looking forward to your feedback, and hope you enjoy the show today. Today we're going to have Malcolm Saunders from the Light Cellar joining us today. We'll also have Sherry Ann with Sister Speak. Should be a good show. We hope you enjoy it. We're going to be drinking Kanayamidori blend by Takaki. This is a selection that we bring on and off again. It's really floral, really delicious, from a relationship that we're very proud of. The Takaki family has been growing tea for 3 generations, so young for tea farmers, but do just a bang-up job. We'll actually have Mr. Takaki on the show next week, so you'll see my my colloquial Japanese in action, which is unfortunately not as formal as I wish it was, but so be pre-warned if you do speak Japanese that I'm not a super polite Japanese speaker, but I hope you join us next week. He'll be waking up at 5 or before 5 because the show starts at 5 to join us next week. So pretty exciting to have him on the show. Before we get into things, what I like to do is I love to cup a selection or a tea that I've never had before. So, our guest will be joining us at 20 after. I do be pre-warned. Although I did confirm the show with the Light Cellar, I haven't been able to get a hold of them for a final confirmation today, so I'm hoping that all is well. This is a Tiguan Yin that's been sealed by the farmer that we're working with in Anzi. It's been roasted, and it's a couple years old, so there's this concept in darkly withered or roasted teas. Ooh, that's going to be problematic. I moved my computer, so I don't know if I have the same reach anymore. That's kind of funny. Let's see if I can't preheat this way. So I can reach the sink for tossing. Okay, good. So, I'm going to clip open this package. Tiguan Yin translates into Iron Goddess of Mercy. And normally I would drink this tea as in a gong fu style. I'm going to go for something a little bit more cafe style, I think. Just because, wow, look at that. Packaging inside of packaging. So, it was basically inside of this guy here, and then it's inside of a little package inside of the package. They did that to protect the aromatics. This tea looks like it could use a bit of a rinse. Just from the look of it, it looks really nice. So I've set the kettle to 90 degrees C. Just gonna chop that. So that was about 7 grams of tea. It smells very like foresty, almost like needles, like crushed needles when you're walking in a forest. Let's see my timer. I'm going to try doing this for a minute 15. It's just my gut feeling on this. It might actually be a 45 second or 30 second or a 2 minute. Really unsure. But I'm guessing here. I think most of the time if you were going to drink this at Origin, you would have you would do a flash infusion for the first infusion. You might not even drink it. And then you just keep flash infusing until you start to get out flavor. That's my understanding. I like to brew in glass. I find that that gives me just a sneak peek at the leaves unfurling, but many people prefer to brew in clay. Definitely the kind of clay that you have in your teapot is going to impact the extraction. So if you want to have a nice extraction or like an even more ideal extraction, you can see what happens when you brew with different brewing vessels. Again, I've said this in many episodes, I'm not a big fan of metal, not a big fan of plastic. I'm actually less of a fan of plastic than I am of metal. And that's just because I find that the flavor extracts so much nicer in glass and ceramic. Metal seems to make things a little bit acidic. Plastic can scratch pretty easy, and then you start to taste the teas that you were making before, especially if you ever work with scented teas. Some people really like the Earl Greys, etc. And that oil of bergamot, I like to tell people, it survives for all of eternity. So you're not going to get away with having something sort of pick up that oil of bergamot scent and then be able to use it for anything else. So, not a big proponent of scented teas, but I know they can be quite relaxing. It's like essential oil tea. Smells like butter. I'm going to cheat here. That just has such a nice aromatic, but not quite ready. So I'm just going to toss in the water over the leaves for another 30 seconds, I think. And I'm going to grab a cloth. Managed to make a mess here. So, if things don't turn out with the light cellar, that would be too bad, but we'll still have the lovely Sister Speak joining us, so it'll be a good show regardless. Let's see. Yeah, so that smelled really good and tasted really watery. It could just be that it would have been smarter for me to use less. Sometimes these more premium Tiguanyans, they just do a lot better in a more traditional setup. So we're working with a lot smaller size teapots. Like instead of this 180 milliliter teapot, using something more like 60 to 90 milliliters. So again, very nice aromatic. You can see the liquid color there pretty decently. And then we have, yeah, that forest smell is gone. I'm getting apricot and butter now. Smells fantastic. Yeah, a lot more flavor clarity, a little bit more texture there. The leaves look like they could give so much more. Do we have the time? Yeah, we do. I'm gonna skip this steep, and I'm gonna try and do a minute and 45 just now. So I'm gonna do a 2-minute infusion. See if I can't pull out more strength of flavor. And if I have to, I'll probably go back to this tea again, and I'll brew it as a in the Gong Fu style, so a lot stronger. I always find these roasted oolongs quite interesting. When I'm making an oolong, of course, I'm allowing the PPO enzyme, the propyl oxidase enzyme, to do its magic. A lot of the Tiguanyans we bring in are fairly lightly withered, so they're going to taste closer to a green tea. They'll have a kind of fresh cut grass taste. But at Origin, people are enjoying something that's withered a lot further. I don't know if we could call it dark oolongs at that point, but maybe in the middle. Tiguanyin is often actually a great example of something that's often right smack in the middle in terms of withering percentage, so percentage of moisture loss via the withering process. What's interesting about charcoal roasting is, of course, it's like finish firing sencha. You are imbuing a new flavor dynamic to the tea. You see this done in Phoenix Mountain, Wuyi Mountain, quite commonly. I do see Tiguanyins that are processed this way, but this is not what I've, at least in North America, the norm for Tiguanyins. Yeah, it is very promising. I wonder, looked at the price, and the price was a little bit low. So, I'd expect it to be a little bit too tight, or like the leaves maybe rolled too tightly, so they're not going to really be able to produce much flavor using a more common brewing methodology. This is one of the reasons I've gone with this longer brew time. Yeah, but we'll see how it goes. And okay, pour that through. Get that last golden drop. Very nice. Okay. So again, very nice color. Kind of this amber, not amber really, yellow, gold maybe. Yeah, it's still tasting like too watery. Yeah. I feel like this tea has promise. Again, I feel like it's funny because at the beginning of these episodes, I'm always drinking a tea I've never had before. And one of the problems with that, of course, is that I don't know how to brew it. I can guess. But the more you brew a tea, the more you understand it. So that first infusion is generally not going to be a very good one. This one I would drop the water volume down. I think I have accessed some pretty interesting flavor characteristics. They're just diluted. So I would keep the temperature at 90. Might even keep the brew time, but when I do lower the volume, I'll probably find that it gets harsh really fast. So I think the next time I make this, I'll probably make it, a lot smaller. One moment, I think we have Light Cellar on the line. so that was the light seller on the line there. So that's great. That means that Malcolm is going to be joining us. And hello, Jerwolf. Yo. And we'll be, if you want to join us in the chat room, actually, anybody watching that wants to can join us there and be a part of things. Sister Speak should be joining us soon as well. I'll just make sure that things are set up correctly. Looks like they are. So I'm going to see if I can't make that invite happen. So yeah, should be seeing her shortly. Might even join us before Malcolm. So as I was saying about this oolong, just a lower dose, maybe some, yeah, I don't know. I think I'll keep the time the same. I think this is just fabulously under extracted, and I think that I've just I've hit a note where it gives me hope that there's some really beautiful flavors in there. So looking forward to making that happen as soon as it happens. So I'm gonna see what's going on with Sister Speak. Hold on 1 second. There you go. Only on JagaVision do you have these moments of absolute silence as I go off and troubleshoot. Get that out of there. Anyway, first infusion, always a difficult one, but you make it through. We're going to be doing this Kanayamidori blend pretty quick here too. I don't know if I'll get a chance to show you guys what it looks like when the audience is, when the guests are on, but there it is. And it's so funny. I hit 120 and then I'm waiting for the guests to join in, because when they do join, it's going to be live and I'll be in the middle of talking to you about something and get cut off. So hopefully everything works out. Okay, I'll send it again. All right. So apparently the link is not working. So I'm just going to send it to both of them again. Excuse me. Maybe I always do a scheduled send of the link, so it's possible that it didn't happen. Oh, and Vrani is piping in. Yes, it's good to see you, man. Good to have you watching. We've been having some interesting conversations that you have to check out the last episode. It was pretty wild. Lots of conversation about sourcing, etc. Been really getting into water too. So had the owner of Johnny Bean in Lethbridge, who'll be on the show in early August. He was talking to me about water, and obviously, you know, we talk about TDS and total dissolved solids in the industry, but he sent me a conversation on the Barista Guild site that talks about the role that buffers play in water and how that interrupts your experience or enhances your experience of acid. So pretty fun. Oh, I think we have a guest. Amazing. Okay, is that Sherry Ann?
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Oh, for some reason it's decided that it needs to play that game. Give me a second.
Oh yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay, we got this. Okay.
Playing that game.
Cool. Okay, so we're still waiting for the light seller to join in.
Okay.
He did call me. He is going to be joining in. That's funny. You're dressed up like me.
I have shoulder blades today.
You have shoulder blades today. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Well, you're sitting out. So for our viewers, Sister Speak is in town, and so she's set up for her show, which she holds every Thursday at noon. She's been setting up out in front of Jaga Silk, so it's pretty funny that she's literally outside of the shop right now. I would have her join me, but I'm not tech savvy enough to figure out how to have her on the Hangouts call. Maybe there's a way that we could have like another I'm sure there is another microphone plugged into the computer, and I just need to have that work on both. I can make it work for the upload to the live stream, but I can't make it. I don't know how to make Hangouts hear both microphones. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Figuring it out. So you have the tencha with you there?
I have the tencha.
Amazing. Okay. And you have the matcha?
I have the matcha.
Are you gonna need to run in for scissors, or you want to empty the matcha into the tin? That's what I often do.
Oh yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
I already opened the tencha, and I have a scale.
Amazing. Okay.
And I have a bowl.
Okay.
And I have tea.
Okay.
This is awesome. Glass tea. I want to get one of these. Do you sell them here?
Isn't that cool? We just, that's a sample we got in. We plan on selling them. So you want to show the screen? I think I was showing these off in a previous episode, but they have glass filter built right in to them, and then you can just
so exciting.
Yeah, right. So it's super easy to work with. You just run water through, and then yeah, it works out okay. So
I'd like to be on the waiting list for one of those, please.
Excellent. So I'm gonna turn you down a little bit. Apparently the audio.
Do I look like?
Sorry. Keep going.
Do I look like Spy versus Spy right now?
Oh yeah. You gotta have it in. Oh, so it's you build a little door in the wall and escape. I'm sure it's gonna happen like the video game. So for our viewers, again, Sister Speak Music. So how long have you been a recording artist now? I feel like it's like over a decade, if not longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're at album number 3, 4?
For Sister Speak, I'm at album number 3.
As Sister Speak, okay, yeah, which was your live album that you just released. Do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about the new album?
I'm actually getting nice and warm now. The new album we recorded in San Diego. We threw a big party for our second album, The Stand EP,
nice.
And we threw a big party, The Belly Up in San Diego, and we just released the song Lose Control online, featuring the Brothers Burns. And then the whole album I'm going to put online, looks like probably July 21st, we'll say.
July 21st, okay. No, that's awesome. And it looks like Malcolm from the Light Sellers just joined us as well. Hi, Malcolm.
Hey.
How's it going?
I'm doing awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day here, and I'm ready to drink some tea and some matcha. I'm excited to hang with you guys.
Awesome, cool. Yeah. So Malcolm, meet Sherry Ann. Sherry Ann, you want to tell Malcolm a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. I play music and perform songs and write songs and like to meet people. How about you?
There you go. You want to tell us and the viewers a little bit about what you do, Malcolm?
Yeah, awesome. So I'm actually based here out of Calgary, Alberta, and I like to say I help people find and learn how to craft their own food and medicine. And I do that through a small little superfood shop called Light Cellar that I started here. Oh my gosh, it's like about 12 years ago out of my basement.
Wow. And
yeah, so we teach classes. It's a retail store. We have an elixir bar. We make chocolate, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, you have a lot of fun. I haven't had a chance to check out your new digs, but when I went to your former space, just the sheer creativity that was burgeoning out of your store was inspiring. The ferments, the krauts, and the kimchi, the miso. You guys, do you make your own miso? Or you buy that from a local miso maker, or how does that work?
Yeah, we buy it from a maker. We do it's a chickpea base, fermented 1 year, and unpasteurized, non-soy. So.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. My actually the person who introduced me to food as medicine, I would say, is actually on the talk with us right now. My Sherry-Ann is my sister as well. She was very humble in her introduction, but she does until COVID was doing hundreds of shows a year, travels the world, has quite an awesome career. We've been her tea sponsor. We send her tea all the time, and she embarrassingly promotes it like so much, and it's great. And anyway. So that's sister speak. But she also, as my sister, introduced me to not ingesting hydrogenated oils, and before that was even banned or something that I really had heard about. And the whole idea around processed sugars and all the kind of damage that we do to our bodies through processed foods, etc. And your space is really, I'm sure you have lots of specialties that you do, but it's the ferments and then also the reishi chaga mushrooms, there's the different blends that you do that involve adaptogens, etc. And one of our viewers on the chat says they love your chocolate. Love your chocolate.
Oh, cool. Right on. Yeah, thanks a lot. That's something that we make in scratch. Like literally, the chocolate grinder hardly ever stops. We've always got something on the go. Nice. We use heirloom cacao beans from Ecuador. We stone grind that. And then we add different superfoods, herbs, medicinal mushrooms, because chocolate, it's the greatest delivery system. Right. I like to say it's the Trojan horse of good nutrition, because no matter what you put inside, it gets past anyone's pearly gates.
Nice. Hilarious, man. No, that's awesome. You have a favorite origin?
Of cacao?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. It is Ecuador.
You're into Ecuador. What is it about the Ecuadorian origin that does it for you?
Yeah, it's got a nice fruity flavor to it, and it's been known throughout the world. It's what put Ecuador on the map within the chocolate making world for fine flavor, fine aroma, and it's something about the terroir there, because they've taken rootstock of the same cacao, planted it elsewhere, and it produces different results. So there's something unique, something special about there, and I've really been digging in. My mother-in-law happens to live there as well, so we've been visiting her the last few years, and every time we go, we're checking out cacao.
Nice.
And so right now, I literally actually have 3 bars left on the shelf of a special limited edition batch that I did, because I brought cacao beans back last time I was there.
Can I reserve one?
I will. Yes. I'll
You'll reserve me one. I would love you to reserve me one. I will e-transfer you after the show.
It was literally it's an American man. He's lived there a couple decades now. He married a Shuar shaman, and together they've got kind of an ethnobotanical reserve education center, and they've also got connections to the Shuar, her people that live deep in the jungle, that are not only are they harvesting wild cacao, but they're also growing it there too. And he invited me out last time I was there, and it was an 18-hour drive one way just to go check out.
Wow.
Place. I was like, not this time, but hopefully next time I get down there, go deep. And the flavors are incredible. I mean, you know it as someone that really enjoys and appreciates flavors of tea, which I'm so stoked to get into with you today. But chocolate's just the same, right?
Yeah, totally.
Chocolate, right? It's chocolate, but no, there's so much to it.
So much to it. People often ask me, how are things in tea, or we'll just assume I don't know, only a tea focus. But I'm sure you and I both totally jive here. Did I lose you there, Malcolm?
No, I'm still here.
Okay. In that there's so many layers of flavor, not just in chocolate, not just in tea, but in coffee, in wine, in cheese, in so many different foods. I'm sure that you probably get into the idiosyncrasies of chaga mushroom and how different harvest techniques and drying techniques. We work with an herbal farm north of Edmonton that the way that they process the peppermint, where they don't let it, they don't put it in bags before it's completely dried, and therefore it preserves the beautiful green, emerald green color. Just that simple technique does so much for the presentation, but also the aromatics, the flavors. So you start to analyze a particular botanical, and I'm sure no matter what it is, really, you can do a deep dive. You can get really into it. So
One of the neatest things about cacao, and I know tea is similar in terms of the oxidation, but is the fermentation, and that is one of the kind of the last frontiers of cacao. Okay, sure, there's the origin, there's the terroir, there's the chocolate making process, and all the steps are involved there. But there's this one key step of the fermentation of cacao, which you can take same bean, same origin, same making process, and you can make it go this way, that way with the flavor, just depending on how long you ferment it or what you ferment it with. There's so much, and it's a very untapped step in the chocolate making process. I visited a farm down there last time where they're beginning to specialize in that. They're beginning to customize how the beans are fermented to get different flavor profiles.
I wonder, like raised beds like they do in tea and in coffee, how that bringing it up off of the ground, just how much that does for just a fuller ferment and a cleaner drying process, what that would do for an impact flavor for cacao. I'm sure it would do a lot, and temperatures and measuring humidity and getting into mass measurements, like what is the temperature and the humidity in the room, but also or in the environment that it's being dried and fermented in, but what also am I doing in terms of and of course the cultivar is going to play a role too, right? Like that's why I love cultivar conversations so much. Like the matcha we're going to have today is the Kanayamidori blend, and that's actually a blend of 3 different cultivars: Kanayamidori, Yabukita, Okumidori. There's a lot going on in that tea, but you mentioned about planting Ecuadorian rootstock in another country and how like the flavor is just not the same. It would be interesting to take that same Ecuadorian rootstock and plant it in another farm in Ecuador. I'm sure it would change again, because but it will probably share more characteristics with the other farm in Ecuador than it would if it was planted in another chocolate producing region. Right?
Yeah, so West Africa or Hawaii or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an Ecuadorian terroir, and there's also a micro region and even a micro lot terroir that impacts the flavor. And of course, the year, the rainfall, the choices that the farmers make along the way are going to have such a big impact on the end flavor in both your chocolates and in your teas. Definitely, yeah. No, that's fascinating.
It's so great to chat someone else that speaks the same language. The gas industry is further along this path. Chocolate, it's the real hardcore ones that know it and are into this world, but it's slowly trickling out to the mainstream within this whole rise of craft chocolate. So it's an exciting time for chocolate. I'm looking forward to it developing even more.
There's a really good company in town called Siren, and fellow Dave Muncie who imports chocolates and has does a really good job of educating the general population. But like you said, it's hard to find people that speak the language. Coffee, I kind of I have a little bit of a not envy, but I'm really happy that conversation is so easy to have in the world of coffee with so many different people. And it's getting easier with tea, for sure. We're seeing more and more people. But when we started JagaSilk in 2005, the conversation, and I couldn't find anybody that was having that conversation. Like the fact that we even put cultivars on our packaging at that time was like really kind of out there, right? And but it's really nice to see that, and I'm sure there were other companies that were doing it, and I just didn't know them. But it's really awesome to be able to find more and more people that are having this conversation, because it just does so much, right? Like I think by understanding more and more of what we ingest, not just I should say, it's also really incredibly important to understand what the medicinal properties of the healthful properties of the botanicals that we're ingesting. But it's also really interesting to understand how they are grown and how they're created and how that impacts the end flavor and that end medicinal impact.
Yeah,
right. Like and Sister Speak, you can pipe in anytime you want. I know that we have Sherry-Ann often as the observer, it seems, because we have these conversations, but she's not in the industry, so she is a musician. She is, though, a big health food and tea fan. So if you want to ever pipe in and ask questions for Malcolm or myself, please don't hesitate to.
I actually have a comment about cacao.
Okay.
I'm so excited. I had to take care of something for a second. They had a customer that thought that it was open, so I was just talking to him. But I did catch most of it. And when I was in Costa Rica, we went to a meeting with an indigenous tribe in the area. We went to like on a, they had like a packet you could go and be introduced to different plants and things, and it was like a really sacred cacao plant in a lot of their ceremonies, which was really cool. And then, interestingly enough, I actually have been allergic to chocolate for most of my life, but I'm not allergic to cacao. Would you be able to speak to a little bit of the difference between the cacao and then like chocolate that maybe is made, like ways that we could make chocolate that might be good or like harmful even?
Yeah, absolutely, and it all goes back to the genetics. So, which could be what's involved in your case. It could also be the processing. But let's start with the genetics in that regard. So, we talk about Ecuador. It's probably the origin that I know the most about. So this Ariba rationale. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. One thing is that I wasn't allergic to the cacao at all, though.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I would assume that probably the origin of cacao that you're consuming comes from a more pure genetic versus the cocoa that is then turned into conventional chocolate. So anyway, I'll share and maybe we'll get there. It might provide some insight. Like, because I know a lot of people, you might have heard that anytime they eat wheat in North America, they react, but they go to Europe and it's like they can eat all the bread and pasta and everything they want. There's interpretations of that. It's partly the variety. Like here in North America, we're growing these particular hybrids. There's also the chemicalization, glyphosate being used here. Then there's also the storage and or the lack of freshness versus the freshness in Europe, not only in terms of the storage but also the making. So some of those factors come into play, at least in the world of wheat. Now in Ecuador, cacao, so there's this heirloom variety, and obviously we all know what heirloom is, but absolutely, of course, it applies to chocolate just as much as it does to any other food crop that we consume. People go to the farmers markets looking for those weird, funky tomatoes with the stripes, because it smells better, it tastes better, it's more authentic, it's the real thing, it's closer to its wild genetic. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of risk in the chocolate industry to disease. So Costa Rica, you mentioned, in 1 year, I believe it was in the 70s, they went from net exporter to importer because a disease came through and wiped out the entire crop. Costa Rica was the first country I was in where I actually got to personally connect with cacao, the tree. And my first experience, I was with Jarl Willard from Harmonic Arts. We often travel together as families, and we all load the kids in the van. We're driving around, and we've all all of us, we've all got food, right? It's especially wild harvesting, herbs, driving along, and there it was. It was boom, cacao, a forest of chocolate, and so herbs. Right, we get out. I'm dancing. I'm oh, this is amazing! And very quickly, that turned south because every single pod that we looked at was actually rotted. Oh. So there's too many diseases that are kind of ravaging. The frosty pod rot is called one of them. And it was funny. I had a writer in one of my classes, and I was sharing this story, and immediately he's like, that's the character in my next book. He's like, I love that name, the Frosty Pod Rot.
The Frosty Pod Rot. Love it. I want to name a cat that. That's hilarious. That is so great. That would be a very nefarious cat, I think.
Right. Yeah, totally.
That's hilarious. Huh. In tea, I think that you do see disease, you do see people reacting, etc. But a lot of it has to do with, like you're saying, and in flour too, you see it, right? Where there's just these monocropped, commercially grown cultivars that are just kind of overproduced to the point where they start to. I don't know if it's the mechanism of that particular cultivar, or it's the sheer amount of pesticide and fertilizer use involved in keeping these cultivars going that really have passed their prime a long time ago. Because cultivars don't last forever. Even though you're just planting rootstock based off of, it was a really interesting book called Making Cider Simple. Amazing conversations about cultivars and the relationship, and talking just about how cultivars that were produced 400 years ago no longer work anymore. And the reason why they're produced 400 years ago is because the cultivars 400 years before then had stopped working, and that they were dying. So it's really important, we get so hung up on particular flavor profiles from particular cultivars to the point that we think that they're immortal and that we need to keep producing them over and over again. And in tea, you just you snip the top off and you just plug it in the ground and you've propagated the cultivar that you love. With apples, you need to graft branches onto rootstock, and it sounds like it might be a similar thing with chocolate. I'm not sure, but of course, when you grow from seed, completely different flavors, not always ideal. But it's really important to have that sort of roulette game that you play with nature so that you can find very beautiful cultivars that maybe aren't widely grown and you've just produced by growing from seed, right? And I think when you don't do that, you run the risk of just forcing its continued lifespan through, again, pesticide use, fertilizers. And I think that can have an impact down the line where somebody like my sister is going to get an allergic reaction from this, and it might not even be from the chocolate. It might be just from what's gone. You might find that organic chocolate has a less of an impact on you, Sherry-Ann. I don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing about cacao is actually so two parts. Just to quickly add on to the cultivar. Ecuador, what's happening there is naturally very concerned. They didn't want that to happen to their country. Dominican Republic, different countries have taken different stances to try and protect their strains, their varieties, their crops. So Dominican Republic only exports. You cannot bring anything cacao into the country. It's only export to kind of minimize that.
Right.
Ecuador went about. There was a man that went about kind of hybridizing, creating his own cultivar that was disease resistant.
Right.
And within that process, created something that was not only disease resistant, but produced huge pods, fruited very early on, was just a workhorse, right? Like all these great industrial characteristics as a major producer, but when it came to flavor, when it came to nutrients, when it came to aroma, like just fell so flat.
Oh, oh wow. Okay, so the opposite of where I thought you were going with this. Okay.
Yeah, so there's actually a big divide within that country where there's kind of the industrial cacao production, which is using what's called CCN 51. That's the name of it. And then there's this kind of smaller side to the industry, which many people are really trying to kind of revive and bring back those heirloom varieties, wild varieties, which maybe aren't as hardy in the face of disease, but produce something much more superior as a flavor. So then the second component is it's similar to coffee, that there's a lot of contamination in terms of mold. So from the fermentation to drying, there's a lot of cross-contamination. So me bringing in cacao beans to Canada, I've got to produce certificates of analysis that say that there's no mold, there's no E. coli, no salmonella, certain parts per million less of funguses. So it's actually known as a contaminated food, and I know some people are sensitive to the mycotoxins in coffee, and it's very similar in chocolate. And most producers don't care because you just you throw it into the roasters and it all gets ground up and mixed together. Whereas we specifically source beans that do not have any of that mold or mycotoxins. That could be a factor as well.
That's fascinating. That is absolutely. So it could be organic, but through the process, there's the introduction of molds and fungus, and you start to get this issue with allergic reactions down the road. That's fascinating. It's just it's interesting that conversation about like big beans not producing the best flavors. Like that whole, you think that with big yields and with big beans you'd end up getting something beautiful, but it often is not the case. Hey, like strawberries, like the little tiny strawberries being the most flavorful is an example I love to bring up.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, right? Versus like the wild ones, which they're tiny, but they're just packed full of
right? So much flavor. Yeah, I'm sometimes surprised. I've had some heirloom tomatoes that are massive and just so flavorful, it's mind-boggling. But for the most case, it seems that wild, small. And that's all going to be seed varietals, right? But I think it becomes so inconsistent and difficult to mass produce. And that's why people end up going in the direction of carefully managed, carefully propagated cultivars that they've chosen. And it's one of my big worries when I'm looking at a tea field in Japan is it is such a monocrop. There is different cultivars grown, but I see a lot of fields where it's just tea. Like you don't really see anything else growing with the tea. And I do find that the flavors that I get from fields that have a little bit more they're like a little bit more involved with their local surroundings, often taste a lot better. So say like tall trees around, not, it still needs sunlight to grow, but a smaller field rather than this massive fields that are shared with multiple farmers are intriguing to me. There's a lot of wild tea in Japan where people have just let it go wild because there's a actual denigration in the industry in terms of young people not carrying on the work of their parents and moving into the cities, and just a lot of concentration of tea production with these larger companies, which is really unfortunate because I think we're losing a lot of heritage. But yeah.
On the positive note, there is that resurgence. You and I, like, this is the conversation we're having that's going back to that. I think the biggest mistake we did, not only in tea and chocolate, every single aspect of our food system was the industrialization of it, trying to go mass scale, which of course has desirable traits. I mean, the fact that, in North America, it's almost impossible to go hungry. We have an abundance of food, 24/7, 365, anything you want, literally. But as a result, we've gotten a lot of like huge quantity of food, but a very poor quality. So it's about flipping that again. We're moving from Wall Street to Main Street. It's this relocalization. It's artisan. And I'm just loving it.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating time to be alive. And I think it's a really fascinating industry to be a part of and to try and encourage, right? And why don't we continue the conversation while we're making some tea?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is for our viewers. This is the tea. Looks like the screen froze. Are we live? Yes, we are. Okay. Cool. Okay. So give me one sec, guys.
Yeah, I'm good.
So I produce the show and I host the show, so I have to run the computer. So
was I here with you while I called earlier?
I put the "Be Right Back" sign up, and I was talking to you while I was live. It was pretty fun. So this is the Kanayamidori blend that we're going to be drinking. I want to start with the tencha. So you guys would have received a matcha and a tencha.
All right, look at that. This is such a treat. So
there you
appreciate
go.
this.
Have you ever had tencha before, Malcolm?
I'm not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So
let's open it up. Let's take a look. So when we're growing tea leaves, it's all the same plant. Hey, Camellia sinensis is going to produce our green teas, our oolongs, our crimson teas, our true black teas, etc. When we want to make a green tea, basically what we want to do is we want to harvest leaves from Camellia sinensis, and we want to hit it with heat so that it stops the propyl oxidase enzyme, the PPO enzyme, from browning the leaf further. 23 hours. Within 23 hours of harvest, we want to stop that process of production oxidation, as I like to call it. Okay. So when I want to make a tencha that's meant for matcha, so when I'm like, okay, I want to take these leaves and I want to make them into something for matcha, I actually have to take my harvest to a completely different facility than I would for sencha or gyokuro or any other sort of regular loose tea that you'd get out of Japan. All right. And for making matcha, even before I harvest it, I want to put they call them tanakabuse, or like shade growing shelf mats. They're like perforated canvas that's held over top of the leaves, and then they're going to put them on about 3 weeks before harvest. And a lot of times you hear in the industry, the tea industry, about 2 leaves in a bud for like that perfect plucked tea. But for matcha, for tencha, you want to actually let the bud grow out into a small leaf, because a bud isn't going to do very much for you when in the end of the day you're deveining and destemming your leaves. So you let it go a little bit further than you would for, say, gyokuro. By shade growing it, you're actually also encouraging the leaves to grow slower and come out of that winter hibernation with a little bit more focus of those volatile oils, so that you get a lot more complex flavors. This is why high elevation coffees, chocolates, etc. taste so good, or non-irrigated olive oil, is because the plant has more time to produce the harvest, the leaves that we harvest, the fruits that we harvest, coming out of that hibernation, right? And so they further accentuate this through the shade growing process. And then I'm going to take those shade grown leaves, I'm going to bring them to a tencha factory instead of a loose leaf tea or a sencha factory. And the tencha factory is going to dry the leaves flat, and then they're going to devein and destem them, okay? And you're going to create a tea that we're looking at in front of us called tencha. If you can see this grinder behind me, this grinds to 10 microns or less, which was really difficult to find. And we got it. It's a company in Japan called Terada that we were able to get the grinder from. And they specialize in Japanese tea manufacturing equipment and have for decades. But what we've done is since October of 2018, we've started to mill our own matcha. And so this Kanayamidori blend, this is the tencha, the raw product that we would put through the grinder, and then on the other side is the matcha. Do you guys want to look at the matcha as well?
Yeah.
Open that up, and then you can just do a comparison of what it's interesting, just the color change, like how vibrantly green it gets when you mill it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even just shocked at the tencha for those that are at home.
Yeah. I'll try and do a close-up there. Tencha versus...
Yeah, like it's super green. I've never seen green, like tea leaves that green.
They're pretty cool, hey? Just for the record here too, I like to show this on JagaVision as well. This is fresh matcha. Can you guys see that? Okay, this is your camera.
Yeah.
Audience camera. Your camera.
Woo!
Audience camera. See, those are actually the same tea. This one is old. This one is fresh. Isn't that crazy? So just what oxidation does to color is. You were talking about chocolate and how it moves and how it's processed, etc., and how that has such a huge role in end flavor. Storage, I'm sure, in chocolate as well, has such a massive role. And I think a lot of reasons why people don't like matcha or don't like green tea in North America is there's 3 reasons. One is purity. It's going to be blended with MSG or some other color and flavor enhancer or sugar or something and make it really unpleasant for their system over time. Another is technique. Like a lot of people burn their tea. They put way too hot of water and they're pulling out a whole bunch of astringency when they should be using cooler water. Which reminds me, I need to fill up my kettle. I love how my cord here, it used to be perfect for getting to the sink, but I moved my computer, so now I'm like hunched over trying to get myself water. But
what if the water's too cold?
If the water's too cold, I actually find that it's much more pleasant than when it's too hot. So
yeah, definitely the same.
So I'm gonna bring out some more fruit and floral. You don't get the floral qualities. You get more like fruit and umami. You don't really get a lot of. It's really the astringency that makes it taste a little bit more floral. It's just a heightened astringency that makes things really unpleasant. Anyway, the third reason, and what I was trying to get at with my huge long monologue here, is the storage. And it's such a fine surface area. Like if you were to pick up some of that tea and run it into your fingers, it actually goes right into your fingerprints. That's how fine it needs to be. Right?
Yeah, I just did that.
Yeah. So it's quite fascinating how that works. What I want you guys to do is I want you to do you have a kettle there, Malcolm, that you can set for 90?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna do 90 and then we're gonna do 65. Sorry?
My kettle doesn't have the temperature range.
Okay, so why don't you take it to boiling? Every time you put hot water into a room temperature vessel, it's going to drop 10 degrees centigrade with almost mathematical precision. So if you what I would love you to do is I want you to weigh out 120 grams of boiling water into a mason jar, and then you're going to pour that onto your tencha that's sitting in another mason jar for brewing.
Okay, I'm just going to grab my scale. I've got that.
Okay.
I'm gonna come get some water, okay?
Sorry, what was that? I had to take off my headset.
I'm gonna come get some water from you.
Okay, yeah, come on in. Okay. Just right there. Sister speak from outside. It's not at temp. Okay, yeah, it's dropped. Okay, so if you just add water into the top there from the 90-degree centigrade kettle, this has hot water in it. You should put it into both, yeah. So I would preheat that and then put 90-degree water in to bring outside. But before that, I would I'd fill this up to the fill line, this red one, with the 90-degree water. And that temperature variation will bring it closer to 65 because there's 55 in it.
So, Jared, I can't find my scale, so this is almost what I suggested earlier. It's like, beginner's mind in that sense.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
imagine I'm the average person. My kettle doesn't have a thermometer gauge on it.
Yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good. Do you have a measuring cup?
Yes.
Okay, let's use a measuring cup. We're going to use volume.
Okay.
And then might as well, where you're at it, grab a measuring spoon. Ideally a 5 milliliter, 1 measured teaspoon.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Okay, we got this. So for those of you who are watching at home, if you do not have a scale and a temperature variable kettle, remember that 10 degrees centigrade temperature drop every time you put hot water into a room temperature vessel. It's really important. Some people get a hot vessel and then they try to reduce the temperature in the hot vessel. With thermal stability via preheating, you're not going to achieve that result. It's actually something you don't want in your brewing vessel. You don't want to be brewing into a cold brewing vessel because that water drop is actually going to be problematic. So it's really a good idea to preheat your brewing vessel, then create your water temperature that you want. So with Tencha, we're going to be cupping at 90 degrees. But normally you could even actually use boiling water for cupping your Tencha. Excuse me. I'm going to go and grab one of these guys. So in a previous episode, when we were drinking this with Jim Finlayson, viewers, you would have seen us use an international cupping kit for our process here. But today I'm just going to do the same process with 2 jars and a sieve. So I don't like to have people feel like they can't make good tea because they don't have the right tools. I think that if you have 2 cups and a sieve, you're going to be in a good place. So I think that really your biggest helper in the whole process for making consistent good tea is definitely a scale, even more so than a temperature variable kettle, if I was going to put them in order of priority. Because you can weigh your water, and 1 milliliter equals 1 gram. So you can do a 1 milliliter, 1 gram. You can weigh your tea, which is going to be 2 grams. If you don't have a scale, volume is the second best thing. So try and get yourself a measuring cup, get yourself a measuring spoon, and then we're going to use volume for the same process. It's not quite as accurate, but it's definitely going to do the trick. So do we have you there, Malcolm?
Yeah, I'm all
okay. Amazing. So what I would love you to do is preheat your brewing vessel, and then what I want you to do is I want you to put the measuring cup onto no, not onto the scale. You want to fill 120, so 4 ounces, half a cup. You want half a cup.
Okay.
And you're going to put it over the Tencha. And you're going to set a timer for 1 minute. And if you don't have a timer, just let me know and we'll just pour together.
Okay, so just because you mentioned, so this water came to a boil. I've got half a cup.
Yeah.
Do I need to do just straight on, like that level of heat?
That level of heat, that's how we're going to cup. So when we're cupping Tencha, we actually use way too hot of water on purpose. And the reason is we want to draw out and accentuate any flaws that are present when we're cupping Tencha. And those flaws will disappear through careful brewing techniques, but not always. There's some flaws that are just not going to disappear.
Okay, so I did 1 teaspoon of Tencha, half a cup of hot water.
I want the teaspoon for the matcha. So what I want you to do is all of the Tencha that I sent you.
All of it?
Yeah, because I weighed that out. That's 5 grams.
Ah, okay.
And then I want to put that water right on top and set a timer for a minute. And this is, again, Kanayamidori is quite an uncommon cultivar. This is from a farmer in Hoshinomura, Fukuoka, Japan. And he's a second-generation farmer. His grandfather actually did do you could say he's third generation because his grandfather had a tea company, but it wasn't a tea production company. His father started the production side of things after the other company stopped existing. And then his son, the younger Takaki, has taken over. He's actually going to be joining us next week for the JagaVision episode from Japan. He'll be waking up for 5 a.m. in Japan, and we'll be cupping some of the samples that he sent me together via JagaVision. So that should be tons of fun. And he's a young guy. He's very interested in new progressive techniques. He went to Tea University in Shizuoka and has some really good connections with others in the tea industry. They're constantly sharing ideas back and forth about better production methodologies. He's just a very talented farmer. He's let us come over there and he showed us how to hand roll sencha. He's a hand rolling sencha coach for competitions. Yeah, he's pretty amazing. So so have we put the water on? Did we do a minute? Where are we at, guys? Sorry, I'm
you said hand rolled tencha. How do you hand roll? The tea's
hand rolled sencha, not tencha. I know that's really hard to pick up, but it's the difference between T as in Tom and S as in Sarah. So hand rolled sencha is a thing, but with tencha you don't roll it. T as in Tom, tencha, you don't roll it.
This is phenomenal. Is it supposed to be phenomenal?
There's a little bit of astringency in the back of the tongue, but it is really good. Yeah, really good. I actually find that very pleasant. I think that astringency is actually quite nice. Where are we at in the process, Malcolm?
Yeah, like, have I done this right? So I poured out the contents of the tencha and then poured hot, like half cup hot water on it?
I'm a terrible teacher. Yes, you poured the entire contents out. You poured the half cup of water, the hot water, on top of the tencha. You set a timer for a minute, and when you're done, you're pouring it through a sieve back into the vessel it came from.
Okay. So now I'm pouring it through. I might have sat just a little bit longer than a minute, probably.
Okay. And that's actually okay. Like when you're cupping, it's different from steeping tea. You're actually trying to draw out flaws and difficult to enjoy characteristics so that you can understand where you don't want to go with the tea. And ideally, you're drinking it with a cupping spoon as it's going through, and you sip it at different points in the process, and you get a sense of what's possible at different points of the extraction. But you don't extract tencha. It's never a tea that you would make this way. And this is only something you would drink at auction. This is only something you would drink. Generally, what happens in the industry is the tea farmers will sell to a co-op, or what they call a nookyo in Japanese, and then the nookyo will sell to a ochayasan, or a tea company, and the tea company will blend multiple farms together from a single region, a single origin, and then they will give it a poetic title. They will then finish fire it with it's like a light whisper of heat, about 10 minutes at 90 to 100 degrees centigrade, depending on the cultivar. For tencha, it's only 3 minutes ish, because it's such there's such tiny leaves, and you get a completely different identity than if you're going to have it from another ochayasan that uses similar ingredients. What Takaki's doing is we're skipping with Jaga Silk. We're actually skipping the co-op and we're skipping the tea company, and we're buying directly from the farmer. And so we're often getting selections that haven't been blended at all. In this case, the farmer has the kind of the tea company knowledge and expertise through the grandfather, and so they are able to both grow and finish the product to a point where it tastes very similar to something that you might find in a store in Japan. And so this is the farmer doing the blending, the farmer doing the finish firing, the farmer doing really most everything here, and getting us a product that's quite, I think, fascinating, interesting. This is really good. Hey guys, what are you? I mean, I taste like a chocolatey note. What say you, chocolate master? Get what I'm talking about? There's like an umami, like thick richness.
Yeah, it's incredible.
There's
on that too. It's like this vibrant green.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tastes a lot like, I mean, we did this before, and this time it tastes a lot more like the pleasantness I like about matcha. I'm not actually getting anything really that unpleasant. We're trying to draw out the unpleasant, but it tastes amazing.
Yeah, we are trying to draw out the unpleasantness, and we're not achieving that. It's tasting too good. Yeah.
So funny. It does have a little bit of like a saltiness to it, even though obviously there's no salt, but like that's the only thing that's a little unpleasant to me.
Oh, interesting.
It's true. Yeah, I would describe that body as like a slight salty, slight creamy. And if I were like really digging to be critical, I would say, okay, there's almost a sharp, bitter astringency, but it just sits on the top note.
Yeah. There,
kind of hangs out.
And then the more that you have a little bit of leaf speckle and sort of sediment in this cup, I don't know what level of coarseness your guys' strainers were, but I'm pretty certain Sherry-Ann's is not super coarse, more similar to mine. Yeah. So I have a lot of sediment in the cup still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
And of course it's going to keep extracting flavor as I drink it. And so my first sip was less bitter and astringent as I'm tasting now.
Right.
It's still very pleasant, but there's definitely a flavor change that's happening as I'm drinking.
Yeah, it's true.
And I love that roasty aromatic. This is what I get from Takaki. Like when I have another farmer we work with who does single cultivars. His name is Mr. Fujioka, and he's from Kyoto. And in Kyoto, they're famous for having a much lighter finish firing, or no finish firing at all, depending on the company. And he doesn't finish fire at all. And also, they steam. So when you kill that propyl-oxidase enzyme, depending on the region, you're going to steam for 30 seconds, a minute, 20 seconds. 20 to 30 seconds-ish is actually asamushi, or lightly steamed. And when you get closer to a minute, it's fukamushi, or like deeply steamed. And in Hosonomura, in Fukuoka, Japan, in the south, they're more prone to do a deeper steaming. So you get more nutty notes out of the tea. And in Kyoto, you get more floral notes. What's interesting about this one to me is I'm getting both. I'm getting a very rich kind of chestnut, thick, nutty note, but I'm also getting a really fragrant, floral aromatic.
Yeah. Nutty, obviously, like very green as well.
Yeah.
Not quite fresh cut grass, but in that direction.
Totally. Yeah.
Little grassy. Definitely has a very pleasant aroma though, like in the after, like I have it all steeped in here. And it's fun.
a fun flavor. Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, why don't we try this exact same tea now? What will this tea taste like when we brew it as a matcha? So I've milled it. Milling, of course, so milling is normally done when it's at origin, which is by far the norm. They're going to be using a granite grinder. The granite grinders, you see like are antique versions of them all over the place. Have you ever seen a flour grinder? Very similar idea, as the plates, and then it has like a chute in the top that you add it to, and then as the plates are rotating, they're grinding. And then what you'll find is that the way that the plates are cut is going to play a major role. When we got in this machine behind me, obviously it's not a granite grinding machine. It's more of a kind of a new age one. The ones that they've traditionally used, I was very, very. There's a sentimental element of me that really wanted it, but for one of them, it's $10,000. It's 40 grams an hour,
Wow.
and you need hundreds of them just to make sort of a go of it. And so most farmers will contract out the grinding process to a company that has all of these machines in place already. Most of them will. Not some of them have their own, but it's quite an arduous process to do it yourself. And we were able to get this machine from Terada that mimicked the shape. And under a microscope, what's quite interesting is that if you just put it through a ball grinder or a burr grinder, tencha leaves, even when they're milled to the same microscopic scope, like the 10 micron or less fineness, the shape of the leaf is square instead of circular. And the circular shape that you achieve from this mill, where it spins in a circle over top of a bed, gets you a circular shape. And that circular shape is going to fit into the pores of your tongue a little bit easier, and you're going to get a way nicer texture as a result. So we were really excited about the fact that we were able to achieve a really similar, if not better, texture than we were tasting. And we searched for years for a machine that would at least be on par with what we were tasting milled at origin. And now we have a machine that we feel like it's actually, if not on par, it might even be even a little bit better. And a big part of that, I think, is the plates are chilled with a water cooler you can see right here. And then it feeds the plates in here, and you can't really see very well from there. But also what happens is that they're coated with titanium. Titanium doesn't allow for a lot of heat to hit the leaves, and that's a big important part of it. If too much heat hits the leaves, and we do this sometimes if we run it hot by accident, we haven't changed the water, etc. Then you start to the umami, that salty, thick, rich note that you guys are tasting, that disappears, and that's all a part of the milling process. But also storage, like that salty, thick taste that you're getting will also disappear if you let it sit for 3 months, even in really good packaging. So 3 months after the mill date, you start to taste the disintegration of that umami.
Wow. So I just to kind of continue our tea and chocolate analogy, I just looked up the micron size of chocolate because we're trying to do the exact same thing, right? Like grind it down to this fine, smooth consistency that your tongue can no longer detect any type of graininess. And so the average micron size is 18 for just kind of your average bar.
Fascinating. Okay.
In Europe, which is considered more kind of smooth and luxurious, it's 12. North American chocolate can be a little bit higher than that, but in Japan, they have the finest on average, and they bring it down to that 10 microns.
That's fascinating because they do that with like for really good tofu in Japan too. When they're milling down the soybean, they like the really good tofu shops will have a granite grinder and mill it to that really fine texture. And you get to a point where texture is not really perceived. I think it's like a sound that you can no longer hear, but you're aware that the sound is there even though you can't hear it. I think that happens at a certain point with texture, is that you perceive that smoothness is there even though you can't taste it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for making the matcha, what I want you to do is I want you to put a sieve over top of the bowl. And in your case, Malcolm, you're going to take that leveled off teaspoon, and you're gonna put that through the sieve into the bowl, and then you're going to need a couple mason jars. Oh, for sure. I just used that sieve. Hold on one sec.
All right. 1 level teaspoon going into the sieve here, and then sift that through into my bowl.
Okay, so we have a lot of people coming from the general public to buy tea, even though we're still closed to the public due to the coronavirus. But we plan on opening for takeout only in the near future on Fridays. We'll see what happens.
Cool. I'm glad you're making it through. I know you ship to us. We sell your matcha. We have the different varieties, and then we also get your jun. So
sure
really
do.
glad you're still open and sending that to us.
We are so appreciative of you. I have to say, Malcolm, that the light cellar is a massive reason for why JagaSilk has been able to make it through. You guys get so much product from us, and it seems to sell really well for you. And yeah, huge appreciation.
Well, we absolutely love it. I affectionately described you as a tea snob.
Nice. Lovely.
Because it just paints the picture, right? Not that I think you're a snob, but because you are. It's like, okay, we need exact temperatures. We're talking about the origins and just the utmost quality, and people taste it, experience it. Staff absolutely love it, and we just pass that on to customers. And we're loving the new big size of the juns.
Those are fun, eh? They're called bombers in the beer industry. I love that name. So we call them
kombucha.
They're a kombucha bomber. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm in love with the kombucha June.
I gave Sharianne, or Mew and I gave Sharianne a case of the bombers for her birthday last week.
Woo, sweet.
Yeah. So you're gonna
do. It's been a hit with my housemates.
Nice. No, that's good. You were saying that, yeah. And the 2 grams, guys, which is 1 level teaspoon, through the sieve into the bowl. And then your water, Malcolm, is probably still quite hot, but if you want exact temperature, you would bring it to a boil, and then you would actually transfer it at least 3 times, if not 3.5. So like the 4th time you do a quick transfer. So how I like to do that is I like to fill the measuring cup with the amount of water I need, which is 90 mils. Okay. And then I like to transfer that into just like 3 sets of mason jars and then pour that immediately onto the tea.
Okay.
And each time you transfer, you got to wait for the heat to come through. Except for the final transfer, you can do quite quickly.
All right.
And this is, for our viewers, if you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself, you can actually add about 1 ounce of, or even 1.5 ounces of cold water. And you can gently work in the matcha into the cold water. And then you can add whatever temperature of hot water you want for the other half, and you can whisk it in. But I really want Malcolm to be tasting a similar extraction as Sharianne and I are tasting. So therefore, we're going to be a little bit more specific about temperature. But the cold water method is going to prevent too much astringency from developing. So.
Oh, Malcolm, where are you located again?
In Calgary.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you ever come play music out in Calgary?
I play in Canmore quite a bit. Yeah, Canmore.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, let's stay in touch. Let me know the next time you're out this way.
They have a big facility, Cher. You should totally perform in near the Light Cellar's awesome. You would love the Light Cellar. It's like your dream store. You would walk in and you'd be like, oh my god, I need to buy everything that is here because.
I'm excited about the cacao.
Oh,
there goes my water bottle.
oh
Sorry.
no. you all right? That was a big sound. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That was your water bottle?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all
I'm
good.
so sorry.
It's all good. So
we got any viewers on right now from the Calgary area? You mentioned somebody that had tasted the chocolate.
yeah, one of our old, actually the fellow who helped found the brewing program at JagaSilk is watching right now. And he was actually he's quite the scientist. He says in a comment, the umami glutamic amino acid profile may denature with excessive heat and prolonged storage. That's awesome. And he says,
wow.
happy belated birthday to Sherry-Ann. But yeah, I believe he has family in Calgary that he visits, and he's gone out to see the Light Cellar and had a really great experience. So
cool. Right on. Yeah. Well, this is going to bring me right back to Victoria. The last time I was at your place, my wife and I, we got to share a nice bowl of matcha prepared in this exact same way. And yeah, it was quite delightful. So
nice. Okay. So where are we at in the process, Malcolm? Do you have the water ready to rock and roll? Or are we?
Yeah. So I've got it in. I got it in the cup now. So I've done one passing back and forth. So I'm going to pour it into the next jar, kind of let it sit a moment and go back and forth.
Well, if the water is, if the cup is hot, it won't work the next time. So do you have a third cup or even a fourth one? So room temperature is what's going to be key here. Room temperature, and then warming it up is gonna play a major role.
All right.
It's his uncle Richard who lives in Calgary. So.
Calgary, I actually have played in a few venues there. I just remembered.
Too many places to remember.
But have you been? I played at the Ironwood and the National Music Center.
Okay.
Both amazing venues.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. And what's the name of your group, or what's name do you perform underneath?
Sister Speak.
Sister Speak. Okay.
Yeah. Look up sisterspeakmusic.com.
All right.
Lots of great messages, and it's like an acoustic. Not acoustic, sorry. It's actually lots of rock. It's like rock / world / folks. How would you describe your music? I shouldn't be describing it for you. When people say what is your sound?
Honestly, it's a mix of all those things. It's like all folk, blues, world, all whatever we want. It changes depending if it's a solo or band too.
And you even have reggae influences, and yeah, it's tons of fun.
It's fun. And I also remember this bar I played at like 10 years ago named Kaylee's.
Oh yeah.
90 grams, guys, on top of the tea.
Okay, 90 grams.
Or 90 mils.
I'm so excited for this right now.
Yeah.
And I should have warned you, Malcolm, to eat something, because this speeds up your metabolism pretty good. So,
right.
Yeah.
If there's some dried fruit or like a banana you can munch on, it's highly recommended if you're particularly hungry right now. So when you're whisking, audience, you put your 90 mils over top of your 2 grams. You're going to whisk to gather in for about 3 seconds, and then whisk vigorously in the center for about 5 seconds. And then you want to finish by working that froth down and integrating it into a really nice creamy texture, so that you get. I don't know if you can see that. Okay.
Can you over stir?
Something about this bowl.
You want to whisk for 15 seconds. So like your ideal technique is to hold the whisk like a pencil, and then a pendulum over top. So you anchor the bowl with your other hand, your non-whisking hand, and then you want to do even strokes forward and backward, and then you want to have a loose wrist and firm fingers, and you start by drawing it in 3 seconds. You whisk vigorously for 5, and then you work it in for 7. And then you can get a nice thick froth with practice. It's all about that. You want to whisk vigorously to really bring in a nice amount of oxygen. It really improves the flavor. Oh, that looks like good technique there. Yeah, very nice.
There's something about this bowl. I've never made a froth like this. I think it's your bowl.
Ah, very, very nice.
Yeah, I know. There we go.
Oh, that's very decent too.
Ooh,
Welcome. Nice. I think we're all doing okay. I would say that the extraction time is much more important than the froth. So really try to keep it to 15 seconds rather than focusing too much on the froth.
Wow.
Yeah. But the froth does make the difference. Like whipped cream versus cream. I don't know why whipped cream tastes so much nicer than cream, but it's air and it's awesome.
Yeah, maybe your chemist friend can share insight on that. There's got to be something to do with the oxygen, this is palate, taste buds, and everything.
Mr. JV scientist, why does air make things taste so good? Why does cream taste better than whipped cream? Why does a frothy matcha taste better than a non-frothy matcha?
Right, or a heady beer.
Jared Verani, he was on the live stream today on the music one.
Oh, nice, very cool. Okay, yeah, he was watching. He was on the show for, I can't remember what episode, but we did a whole episode on kombucha. Malcolm, the product didn't get to him in time because the courier rang the bell, but nobody answered, but somebody was home, so it was really weird. But anyway, he was like a hero. He biked down to the courier's facility in Burnaby from where he's living in Vancouver, and he picked up the jun. But of course, it had been there overnight, so it wasn't cold for the show. So he went over to Burnaby Lake and he chilled the kombucha in the lake, and then he did the show from the park next to Burnaby Lake. It was really funny.
That's good. Wow.
Wow.
Okay, so
aromatizing of flavor, perhaps, is what he says.
Right. That totally makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, your shelled hemp seeds just arrived.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, we have people coming downstairs from upstairs to pick up that order.
Oh, cool. I thought that was a tasting note. I was like, okay, I can kind of get hemp seeds there.
I can actually taste that a little bit. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I actually agree with you guys. That's funny. Talk about like...
A little bit of fresh green pea.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, because when we tried the Tencha, right, we were all describing, okay, it's got that sharpness, that bitterness, that astringency. But, I mean, this is so smooth. So smooth.
I'm tasting, maybe it's how I whisked it or the difference in water, but I'm tasting that astringency that was on the top of my tongue is a little bit more pronounced now in this. But
I'm tasting that too. I actually ended up diluting it just a hair. I usually make my matcha with a little bit more water than most call for.
Yeah. I was before everybody came on the show, I was just expressing how interesting it is to talk about water. The owner of Johnny Bean introduced me to some really interesting material online talking about buffers in water and the importance of magnesium and calcium in water and how they draw out flavor. And I remember talking to the director of coffee at Transcend in episode 5, and he was talking about how water travels over kind of a glacier pathway to get to Edmonton, right? And I would imagine in Calgary you may have similar where maybe it has too much bicarbonate in the water, and then that creates a buffer, and then that interrupts your ability to taste acid, sometimes in a good way, where because of the water, even though you filtered it, it's going to get through the filter, you'll actually have less of an acid impact on the tongue in Calgary and Edmonton than you would in Victoria.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, we definitely do have harder water here.
Yeah, and apparently the hardness of the water is less important than the makeup of the water. So I've always said to people, oh, hard water doesn't extract as well as soft water, but apparently that's not the case. It's actually, you could, as long as you have magnesium and calcium in it, it's going to be fine. The problem with the water, though, is that you can have hard water that has less bicarbonate in it, and you'll get way more flavor pop than hard water that has a lot of bicarbonate in it. It's like if you put baking soda into water, you start to not be able to perceive as much flavor because it messes with the pH and your perception of acidity. And without a really carefully built flavor structure, your tongue can't perceive as much flavor, right? So, yeah. Sorry.
Doing, different types of water. I'm sure you've done this, right? Same tea, everything process, and then different types of water. Like you say, you could take spring water, you could take tap water, you could take, various makeups of water from that level.
Right. Well, what Josh did is he had me send some water, and he used a aquarium strip to test the water that I have in Victoria that I sent him in a mason jar, and then he bought some distilled water that has nothing in it, right? And then he added a carefully measured, heavily diluted solution of Epsom salts to produce with some baking soda and Epsom salts to create the buffer and the required amount of magnesium or calcium, so that he could create a water that extracted similarly to what I'm having here. And he was able to taste a similar experience as to what I'm having by building his own water, which was fascinating. So, apparently pretty easy to do at home if you just get an aquarium test kit. And you test the water, and then you kind of work out the math of how much sodium bicarbonate or how much baking soda you need to put in, and how much Epsom salts. So yeah, really interesting stuff. But I'm curious if you're tasting acid. I'm tasting acid. Are you getting an acidic matcha, or are you, as I would theorize in Calgary, getting a very mostly aromatic and rich, but very little acid?
Yeah, no, very, very little acid. Yeah.
I'm tasting a little bit more than usual, like of the acidic side of it.
Mm-hmm. Because this is what we call an owl grade. So our owl grade matcha has a little bit more acid in it, but it's
Oh.
But that's why our owls probably do really well in the light cellar. Hey, Malcolm, as we're
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fascinating.
Another thing about oxygen and water from Varani is density in relation to textural experience. I think that's just a fancy way of saying that the frothy texture is gonna density in relationship to textural experience. What do you think that means? I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a stab at that. If things are just kind of lighter and opened up, maybe spreading out surface area, allowing to like kind of contact your
that makes sense.
Versus, I don't know. I'm just theorizing on that one.
Yeah. No, if you can spread out surface area, well, if you can just sort of, because I guess when you have a concentrated solution hit your tongue, if you can just disperse it up a bit so that there's oxygen interrupting how immediate it is, how quickly it hits the tasting sensors in your tongue, your taste buds, sorry, it may affect how you perceive the flavor. That makes sense. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And the density, like if it's more compiled together, then there'll be actually less surface area than if it's all spread out.
Right. That's fascinating. Yeah, he says example whipped cream ice cream. Interesting. Yeah. So anyway, air. Well, I once thought it would be really cool to have a nozzle on the end of my hot water tower for when I'm making tea, because I thought it's so interesting to actually have more oxygen in the water when I'm extracting liquid, because I find that in the morning when I was really slow when we first started Jaga Silk, I would have too flat of liquids in the morning, and that had a lot to do with the water getting flat by being in the hot water tower overnight. And if I completely drained the hot water tower before I worked with it, then it was way better. And nowadays, I don't even use the hot water tower very much at all. I mostly use it maybe just to adjust temperature a bit, but most of the time I'm using fresh tap water that goes through a quadruple filter system in our shop, and then I heat it up to the desired temperature. But if it stays in the kettle for too long, it also gets flat. And I think that this release of oxygen definitely has a role to play in flavor extraction as well. So in matcha, after the fact, we're adding the oxygen, but it'd be interesting to see what composition of oxygen in the water does beforehand as well. How much of a role that plays in flavor extraction. Yeah.
So I'm curious. Is it sacrilege to use milk? In that sense, like to do like a latte?
Is our latte? Well, well, why don't you tell actually our viewers a little bit about what you do in the Elixir Bar? Because speaking of sacrilegious, something really fun and awesome, and I think very enjoyable, is what your team has come up with. So maybe you can tell our viewers a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, totally. So here's a picture of actually the book I wrote. It's called The Elixir Life, and it's got matcha right on the front. That's our matcha latte.
Wow,
And,
really? That's on the front of your book? Why don't I know
yeah,
this?
Wow.
yeah, I got to send you chocolate. I got to send you a book.
All these things. Yes, that's great. I'll have to. I'm gonna send you some really nice teas too. That's what we'll do. We'll just do some.
All right.
Yeah.
Do a nice little trade.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'll send you a CD.
Nice. Yes. She has a vinyl album too.
all right. So here's our recipe: the longevity matcha latte.
Oh, very cool.
Wow.
Now, there's certain things that we did, kind of on a functional level for kind of the commercial operation here, and then there's certain things I'll do at home. Although, I will also do what I do here at the shop at home as well. But let's start with the shop and explore that. So the Elixir Bar, we serve, there's about 30 different drinks in here: hot, cold, sweet, savory, and matcha is definitely a feature on our menu. We use the Jaga Silk as the base because I just love it. I describe it as the champagne of matchas. Nice. Literally the best. The color, the freshness. Although, this today, I don't think I've ever had a more fresh stone ground matcha. July 3rd, it says on the package. This was milk.
Isn't that awesome?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So you literally milled less than a week ago.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Wow.
So one thing we don't do is we don't do this. This is not our process. So we put all the ingredients into a blender, and we do serve it as a latte. And when I talked about that kind of commercial shortcut is in creaming things. Sure, we could have milk, and with different people's dietary requests, maybe we'd have cow milk, maybe we'd have almond milk, maybe we'd have coconut milk. But when it comes to that, typically it's stored in the fridge, and you got all these different options. There's packaging, there's waste there, and we don't have the fancy hot milk frother or anything like that. Okay. So what we discovered is that we'll use coconut butter, and this is actually something else that we stone grind in-house. We were originally buying it from a company in the States where it was a 7-day grind. So it's just pure natural coconut, dried flakes that we throw into a stone grinder, and I've slowly increased the size of the grinder that we have. We're up to one that does about 75 pounds at a time. It's stone ground for 7 days. That size of the batch. Again, bring it down to that micron, because most coconut butters, coconut creams, coconut manas, and just really quickly, I guess I should clarify, difference between a coconut butter and coconut oil is think about almond butter versus almond oil. So coconut oil is just the oil fraction. It's been separated. You're left over the cake or a powdered coconut flour, whereas coconut butter is the whole coconut just stone ground in itself, all the fat, all the fiber. Most coconut cream, butter, manas, etc., short grind. It's maybe 12 hours, 24 at the most. And it's good, it's decent. But when you take it that extra step, which we're buying it from this company, and by the time we bring it from the States, with shipping, brokering, conversion, we'd have to charge $35 a jar, and we still couldn't keep it in stock.
Wow.
So I got the machine, it was like, 10 grand, buy this giant stone grinder. Yeah. And so every week that thing never stops. We're always grinding the coconut, super creamy, super smooth. And what happens is, coconut oil you can cook with, right? You can fry with it. It's great oil that way. You can't do that with a coconut butter because of the fiber, because it would burn. But what you can do is you can replace all canned coconut milk, all coconut milk products. You want to cream up a soup, you just drop it in, you blend it. So that's what we do with the elixirs, is it adds a nice creaminess or a nice good healthy fat, good source energy, that type of thing. And just 1 tablespoon into your average 12 ounce, 16 ounce mug, instant latte. So specifically to the matcha latte recipe, we use very often times we use Gynostemma, Giagalon it's called, as the base, and that's what that leaf is here. That's on the front cover.
Gynostemma. Is that a sweetener, or what does that do?
It's a herbal tea in that regard. Yeah, cool. It's described, almost like a southern ginseng or poor man's ginseng. It was one of these herbs where people in the south of China were this one particular region. They were all octogenarians, living old age, very healthy. Like, what are they doing that this other community isn't? What's the difference? And they narrowed it down like, it's the tea they're drinking. So like I say, it's described almost like a ginseng and its benefits, its properties, longevity, antioxidants, so on and so forth. But the amazing thing about it, it actually does have a nice, sweet, almost grassy-like flavor. It's nicely, perfectly with matcha. And when I am looking at, building what I describe as an elixir, to me, it's the subtitle of the book is Modern Nutrition Meets Ancient Herbal Wisdom. So I kind of practically describe an elixir is it's almost like a combination between your morning smoothie and coffee combined. Not literally, because that would be horrible.
Yeah. Well, hey, you never know. Might be surprisingly good.
What was the herb called again? The
Gynostemma.
Can you spell that? I'm gonna.
Gynostemma. Gynostemma.
Okay, I just put it into the chat so people who are watching can see it. Gynostemma.
Yeah. Cool. So, functionally, right, a lot of people in the morning, whether it's a coffee, whether it's a tea, that's a part of our morning ritual or part of morning routine, and very oftentimes, especially in the case of coffee, it's like, okay, I need energy. It's mate. It's like, I need to wake up. I need to get going with my day. It plays a certain role and a certain function, where the smoothie, and I come from the world just like Sister speak here, where it's get all your nutrients in for the day, add in all your protein, this, that, the next, your fats. That's kind of what composes a smoothie. But the idea of an elixir, it brings both those elements together, where you have that functional beverage, and you can choose the different type of tea base. So yeah, you could choose coffee, you could choose matcha, you could choose, reishi mushroom, whatever it is. You got that element, then with the food component combined, and that comes through coconut butter, that comes through different aspects, and you're bringing all those elements together in something delicious. So Gynostemma, typically I'll do as the base, add in a little bit of coconut butter. Again, that's bringing in the fats. And you mentioned about how matcha, increases the metabolism. You've got something, built in, especially fat. It's almost like, when we talk about sources of energy, right? Like sugar, yeah, it's absolutely is a source of energy. We can break that down further to simple sugars. It's like throwing paper on a fire. Like instant burst, but then it kind of dies back and you have that crash. A little bit more complex, maybe it's more like twigs, complex carbohydrate, for instance. Well, a fat, it's like throwing a log on the fire, right? It's just that long, slow, steady burn.
What a great parallel, Malcolm. I really like that. Yeah, I really like that. Because processed sugars go through your system so fast, and we use coconut sugar in a number of our tea latte blends that you guys started carrying, and that goes through your system a lot slower. I think it's more of a twig than a log, but it's definitely not a piece of paper. And,
for sure.
And I think that helps with the fact, if it goes through your systems too fast, it can really harm your pancreas, is my understanding, right? So, it's just does some damage to your system when you have these very processed sugars. And I like this idea of I try to make that a part of my life as well. And you asked, this whole dialogue started with your question, would I put milk in a matcha? And the answer is yes. Yes, I would. But hold on one sec. Malcolm, can you speak for a second? I think I lost the...
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll get it. Yeah.
Sorry. The video shut off. So, anyway, so what I like to do is tell people that the fat definitely helps with your ingestion of the matcha. Like I like matcha like this with something. I don't think it's as awesome to have on its own. I like to have there's a company that the owner used to work for me called Daktu Dates, and he does amazing dates right from Saudi Arabia. And
you sent me a pack actually, and we've started carrying them because they were so good.
Amazing, they're so good, right? So that's great to hear. So I like to have one of those with a traditional matcha, and it's just such a perfect combination, or like a small sweet with the matcha, and I just think it just makes such a big difference. So I think that yes, and I think when I first opened, I thought it was an abomination to put milk into a matcha, and that matcha lattes were just this very I don't know, like I felt like if you put milk in it, it was interrupting your experience of the flavor. And now I realize that I like matcha ice cream a lot.
Oh yeah,
it's so good. So this whole dairy and matcha thing, it's real. It's a flavor pairing that actually works really nice. And then the fat component obviously is going to help your body interact with the matcha a little bit better. That being said, the catechins are going to be, or your ability to absorb antioxidants is interrupted by the casein protein in milk. So it makes a lot more sense to ingest your matcha with something like what you're doing, with like a scoop of coconut oil. And I've heard also some, like that bulletproof coffee stuff. One of the things that he's all about is coconut oil with coffee and how it slows down your body's release of caffeine into the system. So there's another benefit there, is that I don't know, this is pure theory at this point, but perhaps by putting in that coconut oil, you're also making it so that all of these superfoods that you're putting into the smoothie are not going to have as of intense of an impact right away. It might be a slower release. I don't know. I would imagine that might help in some way.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And, you even said it when you said, have a little bit of food with, because it is going to speed up your metabolism, right? If you got something else going down the pipes with the matcha, it does. It's slower into the system, more of a slow release. So that's the idea of the elixir, is combining, the food and the herb together. Right. And so it's really a choose your own adventure in that regard. You can customize elixirs for, any mood, any desire, any condition, right? Maybe it's a long day after work and you just want to just chill out and relax. Like there's an elixir for that. Right. Or it is that get up and go in the morning. There's an elixir for that. Or it could be specific health conditions. Okay, I'm dealing with inflammation, or I've been working out really hard and my muscles are sore, right? Yeah. Begin to intelligently bring your ingredients together in a super tasty, convenient way called an elixir, and you're good. So and I'll just mention the difference between the coconut butter and the coconut oil. I mentioned in how they're created, but functionally, when you add the coconut oil in the case
you did say that, yes, sorry.
Yeah, like MCT oil or something like that, it's going to have a thinner consistency in your matcha, in your elixir. And then and neither is right or wrong, it's just choose your own adventure, your preference. The coconut butter is going to have more creaminess, and it's going to give more depth and more body to it. So
then coconut oil. Yeah, that makes sense.
9 times out of 10, we're using the coconut butter just to give it more depth, more creaminess. And then that practicality, instead of grabbing cold milk from the fridge, combining it with the matcha, you add in a little, a tablespoon of coconut butter, room temperature, drops in. It'll drop the temperature just slightly, but we're able to maintain a nice hot drink that we can give someone without it, having to get the fancy, creamers or warming up, the milk ahead of time. It works out perfectly.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really fascinating. Well, I could talk about this stuff all day, but I did promise you an hour of your time, and I've stolen quite a bit more than that.
It's been a pleasure, man. I'm just flying. I'm feeling so good. That's the other thing I was going to mention. Is as much as I love the flavor of matcha, I love the feeling of matcha.
Yes, yeah. That's a huge part of it. Matcha. One of the really nice things about it is that 6 hours of fatigue relief we talk about, and there's a lot of reasons for perhaps why that happens. Some interesting, somewhat dated research that I've read on it is just that a big hit of chlorophyll in your system is supposed to help with dispersing a buildup of fatigue in your body, and that is why wheatgrass shots, fresh garden spinach, that kind of thing is going to really do a lot for energy in your body. But the L-theanine, the L-theanine that's in it really helps to slow down or block the release of caffeine, and helps with mental clarity, with memory retention. There's so much that it does for your mind. Really interesting and promising studies on how it interacts with the brain and mad cow's disease and other or Alzheimer's or other sort of neurological conditions, and a lot of benefits from the L-theanine. Insomniacs will take it as an extract because L-theanine is actually a tranquilizer. It helps you go to sleep. So you get the stimulant quality of the caffeine that's in your green tea, but the reason why you don't get addicted to matcha is because of that L-theanine. And the L-theanine is going to really help to curb that a bit and help you have a lot more. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I have matcha, I just feel I feel relaxed, but I feel really alert. It's a very good feeling.
Yeah, I often describe to people, as you like meditation, right? Yeah. It's This is meditation in a cup. It's why the monks, were known to drink green tea, and in particular matcha, because they wanted that alertness, but they didn't want to be like sitting there like all jittery on coffee. Yeah. It got them into that nice relaxed alpha brainwave state, experience.
Exactly.
Where the focus was there too.
Yeah, we often mention about Zen Buddhist monks because matcha is most of our viewers, you probably are aware of this, but if not, matcha is the tea in the Japanese tea ceremony. And the Japanese tea ceremony is a Zen Buddhist meditation. And it is a beautiful meditation, a beautiful ceremony. I encourage everybody to check out. What we're doing here when we're making matcha is not tea ceremony per se, according to the Japanese tradition. This is definitely a food service perspective. But there's a reason why I think, like you're saying, Zen Buddhist monks would drink meditation drink matcha before meditation. It helps so much with putting your head in the right space and giving you that really beautiful clarity of mind, and then you can be alert, be awake, and bring on the universe, right? Yeah, totally makes a big sense.
It reminds me a lot of also the feeling with yerba mate.
Oh yeah, fair. Yeah, I would agree.
I wanted to mention one of my favorite smoothies, if that's possible.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so before I came home, I was in Ventura, and I was at an Airbnb, and they had fresh oranges on the tree. And so every morning, we would have 2 fresh oranges, a banana, an avocado, and like a teaspoon of matcha. We'd have matcha bowls and blend it all up.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It was so good, and it had like all the, like you're saying, like the oils, and it had the matcha, and then it had like fresh fruit, and it's not sweetening it naturally. And then we blend it up and we put it in a bowl, like kind of like an acai bowl style. And then we'd put like nuts, like walnuts on top, and then like mint leaves.
Wow.
And a few extra sliced bananas. Oh my gosh.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing.
Oh, with the oranges like right off the tree like that, I gotta tell you, like I want to make that here somehow. Gotta figure out how to grow an orange tree.
I love how well traveled you guys are. We do Japan, and we've gone to a number of trips to Europe, but I'd love to go down to South America. I'd love to have, even in the States, right? Obviously not in the middle of the coronavirus, but avocados off of a tree, like this would.
Well, they were from this bowl, both avocado and the oranges.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
It was in California, actually.
That's pretty rad. That's amazing, actually. Malcolm, before we wrap up, did you want to just let the viewers know just your thoughts on the day and say some words in parting?
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, thanks again for having me on. Super grateful. It was a great experience. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm feeling good. So if anybody's ever in the Calgary area, you want to come by and visit us at Light Cellar. We do have a website. We put all kinds of stuff through social media. So you can follow us at Light Cellar on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those types of channels. Myself personally, I'm also posting lots at The Malcolmist on Instagram.
Rad.
And yeah, cool. And if you are in Calgary, if you are watching this, come on by. You hit me up. I can get you a free book.
Nice. Is that what's gonna happen? Is that the? So
yeah.
Okay. Just mention that you saw Malcolm on JagaVision. There you go.
On JagaVision, you give the wink, wink, the nod, nod, JagaVision, and we'll get you a free book.
That's amazing. Okay. Shout out to Light Cellar. That's very cool. So we'll Sister Speak.
Oh, thank you so much, both of you. Malcolm, I'm excited to read that book.
Yeah, when one is coming your way, I'll send a package.
Maybe we can do a trade. I'll get some music to you as well.
All right, sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to check out the live stream on Thursdays right before the JagaVision show, I'm doing one at 12 o'clock every week on Sister Speak's Patreon and Facebook Live and Instagram Live simultaneously.
Awesome. And your website, sisterspeakmusic.com, right? And the Patreon
Yes.
is patreon.com/sisterspeak?
Yes, and also going to be doing a couple, I'm keeping it all out, pretty much like all, yeah, I'm actually going to be doing an outdoor show as well in the Okanagan in Vernon on next Thursday.
Amazing.
And it's all spaced out. The tables are spaced out really well. It's in an apple orchard, basically. at the BX Press.
Nice.
And actually, already, the tickets are gone, but we'll do another one August 8th.
Okay,
right
so that one's a sold out show already. That's amazing. Well, people are hungry for music. Whereas, to both of you, thank you so much for coming on the show. Huge appreciation. I know that it's a trying time for everybody, but I feel like there's some magic within the challenges that we're all facing. Malcolm, I can only imagine though that there must be quite a lot of people that are interested in what you have available in terms of the superfoods and the antiviral medicine that is going to really help with a lot of people's systems as we're all trying to stay healthy, combating this pandemic as a shared challenge for humanity.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, we're number one. We've been grateful to be open this whole time and really just stepping up into our purpose, helping folks find and craft their own food and medicine. And I was just chatting with one of my staff that she actually lives in Peru. She had worked for us on and off over a couple of years, and now she actually lives down there. And she actually even got COVID, so she's been dealing with it for about 4 weeks now. Wow. Super healthy. She's in her 30s. And she says the toughest thing that she's been through, and the one herb that she's really hitting hard that's actually like helping a huge amount is cat's claw in particular, tincture extract form, and she says that's been really incredible.
Cat's claw, okay.
Yeah, cat's claw. Yeah. Very
important traditional herb.
Yeah.
And the music, I'm really happy that Sister Speak keeps playing through all of this. I know that it's you've had to put most of your shows on hold and all your tours were canceled, but to keep going with the live stream through it all and to slowly start playing some outdoor shows, wishing you the best of luck as that continues and you go on your Okanagan outside tour.
Thank you. I'm just going to keep it very local and always 50 people or less if it's an in and outdoors,
Yeah,
outdoor
for sure.
Space.
Cool. Well, much love to you both. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'll talk to you again afterwards. Malcolm, we need to have a quick chat after. I have some other requests from you that I love your store, so maybe we can include some things in the package that I can buy from you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, right on. Awesome. And I want to have you on my show too.
That would be lovely. I would love to be on your show. Awesome.
We'll do a live chat.
Okay, sounds good. All right, you guys, thank you so much. You all take care. Okay.
Yeah.
And there we have it. Today's show went even longer than normal. It was quite a lot of information. I hope that you enjoyed. We had a really amazing group of people with having the alchemist on here, Malcolm Saunders. And we also had Sister Speak, so again, check them out. Next week, we're going to have Mr. Takaki on. It's going to be pretty amazing. He's going to be cupping samples with us. He does not speak English, so I'll be trying my best to host the show in Japanese and translate for you live while we're working. Might be able to convince a Japanese speaker to join me for the show so that I can focus on the questions and make it a little bit simpler, but see how that goes. Regardless, thank you for watching. Go check out jagasilk.com to see who's on next, who was on. Go to our store to check out the teas. We have a Zoom cupping that's happening on July 20th if you want to check it out. Pretty fun times. We're going to be doing the Yabukita by Fujioka as a matcha, the matcha that we actually featured on last week's episode. Next week we'll be cupping samples, so you won't be able to order any of the teas that we'll be cupping next week. But you will after we decide if they're teas that we're going to bring in after we do our cupping with the farmer. So really excited about that. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week, Thursday, 1 p.m. JagaVision, www.youtube.com/jagasilk. You want to follow us or subscribe to our channel, go check it out, and we'll see you again. Thank you so much.